So I'm working on this video. The title of this video was theoretically supposed to be 6 AI tools that have been a game changer for my ADHD. But it turns out that as I write the script, I can't come up with 6. And that was kind of surprising to me because I have a channel about AI. I just did the whole creator tools that you should be thinking about when it comes to AI video, and I do use the tools that I mentioned. But it turns out that while I do have some AI tools in my workflow and do test a lot of AI tools, most of them don't actually make it into my day-to-day life. And while I'd like to say that the reason for that is creative liberty or my moral and ethical stance against using generative AI tools, I think the actual answer is a little bit more complicated. If you're new here, I'm Jordan. I'm a PhD student at MIT who makes YouTube videos about how we interact with AI systems as normal human beings. So if you would like to hear more about that, you can subscribe down below. And I would love to hear, especially people in the ADHD, neurodivergent mental health, anything like that, also the creator space. I would love to hear what tools you guys are using that you've actually incorporated into your workflow, and how useful you've actually found them, because as I'm going to get into, many of them are quite fun, but many of them don't make it into my actual life. So when I was writing up this video, the first tools that came to mind for me were essentially brainstorming tools. I think when it comes to tools that actually enter my workflow, I'm usually essentially looking for a call and response. So something like ChatGPT, where I'm not using it to really write my scripts, I'm using it to have a conversation that I might not have otherwise, or because for me, I often find it easier to talk out loud when it comes to thinking through ideas that I'm struggling with or not sure how I want to phrase than I do to try to write first, especially if I'm looking at a blank page. And I think that's probably the first reason why I don't go to these other tools first when it comes to things like optimizing my schedule. I could do a whole video on all of the AI and non-AI tools that I've tried to use to automate my calendar and why none of them have worked for me, because none of them have worked for me, and I don't know if it's my ADHD or if it's something else, but I haven't been able to stick with one of those for more than a couple weeks. When it comes to things like generative art, that's just not something I do a lot of. I'm not a visual artist, really. You can see that from my thumbnails. That's why I hire people to do that. And so those also haven't been things that I've been super interested in actually incorporating into my workflow. So I would say the first reason why I think I don't actually use AI as much as you might think in my day-to-day life is because I just don't need to. And I think that that's one of the underlying themes of this channel, is that a lot of the time when we talk about these systems and we talk about the public discourse around them or the pressure that you might feel in your industry to incorporate them into your workflow, a lot of the time you just don't need to use them. And I think that's been my default for quite a long time, in spite of the fact that I have a channel that very much focuses on this topic. And I think that that's probably going to continue to be my default. If I have a system that currently works, I'm not usually super interested in changing it. And that kind of brings me to my second reason, which is that I like structure, I like familiar things, and incorporating new things into my workflow takes time. And so I'm always entranced by these people who seem to be incorporating new AI tools into their day-to-day lives every day of the week, because to test a tool and try it out takes time. You don't just plug it in and it just works seamlessly with everything you do. I think especially if you have ADHD or other mental health stuff going on, especially because I work from home, especially because I'm also a PhD student, it's not simple to change my routines and my structure necessarily. And I'm already quite attached to it. I find that if my routines or structures are thrown off, it tends to kind of throw a wrench in the rest of the week, not just the rest of the day. But I have to set aside time for it. It's not an incidental thing where I can really just decide to try something and still know that I will get all the other things that I need to get done that week done at the same time. The third reason for me, especially as it relates to creative stuff, does get into kind of the ethical side of using these tools. I think there's both, at least for me, the ethical side and also just the personal liability side, especially as it relates to content. A lot of generative AI tools are really in a gray legal area right now. And so I'm a little bit wary of using them when it comes to things that I put on the internet, because I just don't know how the landscape's going to shift. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of something like fair use, except we just haven't had all of the lawsuits that have created a narrower gray area for what you can and cannot do with other people's content. And so I think for me, at least until that's been ironed out a little bit more clearly, I'd rather stay on the cautious side because I definitely cannot afford a lawsuit on that front. And then I would say that my fourth and not last reason, but certainly I think the reason that kind of prompted me to make this video was that in a lot of ways, in a similar sense to one of my earlier points where I don't often feel the need to incorporate certain tools as it relates to productivity, as it relates to content development into my workflow. I certainly do use a lot of tools actually in my content workflow, and if you'd be interested in seeing kind of a walkthrough of how I've incorporated various AI tools into my workflow, leave a comment. But I would definitely say that there are certain aspects of how I do my work that take time and are tedious and could be done more efficiently by AI, and I like doing them. You know, when it comes to researching videos, I like doing that. I would not be interested in, having a virtual version of me, a deepfake or something like that for my channel, because I like talking to the camera. I enjoy doing that. And so I think that there's certainly many ways in which I don't feel the active need to replace certain parts of my workflow for things that I just don't actually enjoy, like going through my inbox is not something that I would say I particularly enjoy. But I think there's also plenty of, especially in creative spaces, especially when it comes to the novel that I'm working on and things like that, those are spaces where I like the challenge and I like the struggle and I like the hours of trying to figure out the best way to phrase a sentence to get the emotions or the visual across that I'm trying to pull out of my brain. I enjoy that process, and that's just not something where I'm really interested in giving it up, as opposed to editing, which I'm really, really interested in giving up at any point in time, which is why I have an editor and use AI tools. So unfortunately, you will obviously not be getting a video on like the 6 AI tools that have been a game changer for my ADHD. But if you'd like to see any of the workflow stuff that I mentioned in this video, definitely let me know. All right, my camera died, so we're back. More than that, I think that if you're trying to figure out whether or not you should use an AI tool in your daily work, it's important to have a general sense of how AI works on top of whether or not that tool is going to work for you. And I don't mean understanding like the complicated math behind AI systems. I mean understanding the concepts. And I think that Brilliant's courses on AI are a great place to start. Brilliant isn't just another platform, it's the best way to learn math, data science, and computer science interactively. Whatever your skill level, Brilliant customizes content to fit your needs and that lets you solve at your own pace. So if you've ever felt like taking a deep dive into the world of artificial intelligence, Brilliant has a course on neural networks, which is a fantastic place to start. It breaks down complex topics, making them interactive and easy to grasp. And personally, I've been loving their course on exploring data visually. I've always preferred visual learning to learning from a textbook, and this course has been a great way to refresh my data analysis knowledge in an accessible way. So the next time you're facing down a new AI tool, wondering if it's right for your workflow, you'll have the foundational knowledge to make informed decisions. From interactive quizzes to engaging problems, Brilliant brings learning to life. It's about active problem solving, not passive reading, which is why it's such an effective way to learn. And if you're ready to embark on a learning journey that is both fun and deeply educational, check out brilliant.org/Jordan to sign up for a free 30-day trial. And as a special bonus to my viewers, the first 200 people who use that link will get 20% off their annual premium subscription. And thanks again to Brilliant for sponsoring this video.